Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughan, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer at Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital and choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. Join the movement at togetherindigital.com. Hello, everyone. And today I am thrilled to welcome Ilise Benun, a nationally recognized business coach who has been helping creative professionals break free from undercharge, overdeliver cycles for decades. As the founder of marketing-mentor.com, Ilise has become the go-to resource for solopreneurs and freelancers seeking better projects with bigger budgets, a national speaker and the author of 7 books, including The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. Ilise brings wealth and a wealth of practical wisdom in today's conversation. Since 2008, she has been sharing insights as the Marketer Mentor podcast, so be sure to check that out. And her signature program, The Simplest Marketing Plan, has helped countless creatives market smarter, not harder. Sounds like music to our ears. For our community members who are tired of undercharging and ready to attract clients who are truly ready to value their expertise, today's conversation promises to be a game changer for you. Ilise will share how to identify and attract the right clients, why marketing only works when you actually do it, and the mindset shifts that it takes for money conversations to make them so much easier. Ilise, welcome to the Power Lounge.
Thank you, Amy. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Yes. Happy Friday, everybody. And for all of our live listeners, welcome. Happy Halloween. Ilise was totally in the spirit of things. And I know that those who are listening to the podcast can't see it, but we've got Captain Ilise here. She's dressed up and ready to go. So we can talk about that spooky, scary thing, money, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for Ilise for being such a good sport and being here today. Let's start with the good old elephant of the room, which is, so many of our members face this. It's an abundant conversation that's kind of always going in our Slack channel. Undercharging and overdelivering. What do you feel is the root cause behind why creative professionals consistently undervalue their work?
So I want to start with a quote from a good friend of mine who works on Wall Street. And she says, "Like me a little less and pay me a little more." And I love that because especially for women, right? There's this people-pleasing thing we tend to do, and it gets all tied up in our quote-unquote self-worth, which I always put in quotation marks because really there's no such thing as that, in my opinion. And we're talking about business. This is business, and you have to understand that and essentially kind of take yourself out of it and think about it as some other entity if necessary. And I just had a thought this morning, actually, which is probably going to inform the next year of my content. But this idea that you have to start with the right mindset. But what exactly is a mindset? That was the question in my mind. I'm curious what you think of that. But my answer was, it's the things we say to ourselves.
Yes.
And that we have total control over and we can change. And it's more than affirmations. I'm not talking about affirmations.
Right.
It's like understanding when you have just said to yourself, "Oh, I can't charge that." Right? That kind of thing. It's the negative that we say to ourselves that we have to surface and then replace with something better.
Yeah, 100%. Like awareness is the key, right? Listening to that internal voice, acknowledging the presence of it, and then acknowledging that tone and that internal narrative. I agree. I think that's exactly what mindset is. And it's something that you can train and coach to be different. I think I tell my kids a lot, just because you think it doesn't make it true, but you can think it into being true. Like you just have to let yourself think it. So it is a total mindset thing. And I love that. Like me a little less, pay me a little more or a lot more. I want that tattooed on me.
Yes, exactly.
That's a great quote. I'm not going to forget that one. And you all know me that are listening. I love a good quote. Cool. Awesome. All right. Next question. Like we talked about this being a little bit of a cycle sometimes, right? Of falling into the space where you aren't charging enough or you're going out of scope a lot with clients. Sometimes the work feels hard to define, and you actually hit more the nail on the head. It's the people pleasing part. And you talk a lot about attracting clients who pay you what you're worth. that feels sometimes impossible and unreachable for some that might be listening. How do you help someone identify what they're actually worth versus what they think they can get away with charging? Because there's like always this like weird line, right, as to what we think that could be, should be, looks like, especially when we don't talk about pricing often.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I would start by just repeating what I said before, which is that I don't think there is such a thing as what you're worth. So if
Mm,
you can realize that, and
mhm.
then the next step is what what do I need to earn? That's really
Yes.
the important thing is, do
Right.
you know how much you need to earn to break even? You should. And to make a profit, you should. And then
Mm-hmm.
you work with those numbers to basically find the people who can pay that. And so
Mm,
this is one of the things I call a pricing problem with a marketing solution, because often people try to, I don't know, hope or convince the people they're talking to pay more.
mhm,
It's unlikely they can even.
mhm.
And we're usually, unless we have very proactively and intentionally pursued the prospects, the ideal prospects that we really want, the ones we have are probably not them, most of them.
Yeah.
And so we have to do the marketing to, number one,
Mm,
identify the people who have the big bucks. And that's a
yep.
guess, because so then you have to go through the marketing process and get to the proposal process to figure out and have that conversation about whether or not they can afford the kinds of numbers you're talking about.
Mhm,
And then, to pursue more like that. So, I mean, one solution that I often advise is if you have one client who is your ideal client and who can pay what
mhm.
you want to charge, then clone them. Basically,
Yeah.
right? Use your marketing to clone them. And AI is actually really good at this. I've been
Mhm.
teaching a lot of people lately how to find clients with AI,
I
and all
love
you have to
it.
do is put in, like, here's the website and the
Mhm.
LinkedIn profile of my ideal client. Find me 10 more like them.
That's brilliant. I do love using AI for a little bit of digging for that. I did something kind of similar where like I went and found LinkedIn profiles because you could download them as PDFs
Mm-hmm.
of people that were our ideal clients or are like most kind of like engaged long-term members and then put those into AI to say like what does this demographic look like? What does this
Yep.
psychographic look like? And
Yep.
that really helped me as well because as you were talking to it kind of reminded me of one of my friends. I have a couple friends who own different catering businesses. This is like a great real world example, right? And they're both caterers, but and they're both phenomenal women, but they both serve very different markets, but they're both caterers. And one of them is she calls herself all inclusive because they will work with any budget, any timeline. I mean, they just stretch and compress and expand like whatever you need, they will do.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Magnificent Morsels. And then my other friend, Salima, Soleil Kitchen, she is like, I charge for bougie. Like I am bougie. You are going to get premium quality food. You're going to have an experience. And if you can't afford me, that's a you problem, not a me problem, because that just
Mm-hmm.
means there's other caterers for you. And so, two exact same type of businesses, both owned by really amazing women, both phenomenal cooks, but both are clearly going after a different audience based on the kinds of clients and what they want to get paid. Now, Crystal, with Magnificent Morsels, her business model makes it such that they can be all inclusive and work within just about any budget. But that takes a lot of time and effort on her part. There's a lot
And
of
it's
operations to that.
Yeah, and it's not just that they're two different businesses. Those are
Right.
two totally different markets, and so
Hmm.
require a different type of marketing. And the thing you're
Yeah.
also making me think of is that price is often a marketing tool. It's a positioning tool,
100%.
right?
Yes.
And often people think, well, if I give a low price, they'll hire me or I won't
Hmm.
lose them. And
That.
actually, there are many clients, especially those who want value and
Hmm.
quality, who will hear a low price and think, "Oh, that's too low. It can't be any good," and they
Exactly.
won't choose you.
100%. I feel like I've heard and seen that happen. We
Yep.
had one of our members reach out to me a while back. She got this amazing opportunity to do the cover and then a spread of a magazine, a local parenting magazine, for a year. And she sent me the estimate. And this is the thing I love about Together Digital and us just talking about prices. She's like, I don't really know. Am I charging the right amount? And she sent it to me and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you need to double this price." And I think she wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
She wanted to remove the barriers of them having any reason to say no. And I mean, she was approached about this project specifically. It's not like they were bidding it out. They
Mm-hmm.
literally went to her and said, "We want you to do this." And I cleared that up with her and I was like, "Dude, double it." She doubled it. They didn't even bat an eye.
Right.
They're like, "Okay, great. Let's go." I think sometimes we let price be more of a barrier. And like you said, we
Well,
don't go ahead.
here's the mistake I think she made, which is not having the money conversation
Mm,
before she did the proposal, right? That's
that.
why my refrigerator says, let's talk about money, because
Yeah.
in that very first conversation, you have to talk about money, and you have
Mhm.
to not say, actually, what's your budget? Because most people don't know, or they won't
Right.
tell you. You
Yeah.
say, well, are you thinking 500, 5,000, or 50,000?
Uh-huh.
Here's my spectrum. Tell me where you are on my spectrum, and then we can talk. And then you'll know
Yes.
if they can afford you.
Right. I love it. Yeah. And that answered my next question perfectly. Like, when we're trying to have the money conversation, it can feel like a struggle and it feels like a game, right? It's a guessing game, it's a bidding game. But I think it's a zero sum game for both you and the client because you want to provide the client with the most value possible, right? Typically, most of these women that are working here within Together Digital are.
Mhm.
And so to try to meet that need, but then not lose your backside is like a whole nother thing. So, what do you think the mindset shift is that it takes to be able to feel comfortable discussing budgets and rates? Because I think people, as you even start to say it, they're like, ah,
Yeah. Well, first of all, going back to one of the examples you gave, you have to not feel like you need it. You have to go
mm,
into that conversation thinking, if I get it, great. If I don't, it's fine. And again, this is a kind of a pricing problem with a marketing solution. Because if you've
yeah,
got lots of other irons in the fire, then you won't feel like you must have this one. And so
yeah,
that I want to call it desperation, because often people do this desperation
that's fair.
pricing because they desperately want it. Whether they desperately need it or not is a different issue.
Hmm.
But you do this desperation pricing and the other people can feel it.
Yeah.
And so you have to go in with a very like, all right, kind of experimental, like this is an experiment. I'm going to
Hmm.
try putting these numbers on the table and
Yeah.
see if they answer. And because I know that sometimes people say, well, what if they won't tell you if it's 500, 5,000, or 50,000? Then you say, all right, how many zeros in your head?
Right.
Right? Like there are other ways. If I told you it was going to be 20,000, would you fall off your chair? There's so
Hmm.
many ways to say it to
To
bring a
ask the
little
question.
humor to the conversation
Mm,
because they're not comfortable talking about money either for the most
right.
part.
Well, and it always blows my mind as a now running multiple businesses that people don't have, they say they don't have budgets. I You have a budget. And it's not going to hurt you to be transparent about it because here's the thing I find, at least with most independent service providers that are maybe usually referred or vetted or trusted, is that for me, it's like, how can I make the most of your money and my time?
Mhm.
Right. And so I'm not looking to gouge you or overcharge you. I'm really just looking to say, how can we be most effective with the money that you have? And so without that line of sight, it's really, really hard to be a good partner,
Yeah.
to do what needs to be done to hit the goals if you don't have that number in mind. So to me as well, I mean, I would take it kind of as a red flag. I don't know
Mhm.
how you feel about it, Elise, that if somebody's like, I have no clue what my budget is, 50 or
Right.
50,000, I'd be like, yeah, you're not my client. You're not for
Right.
me.
That's true. But also sometimes they don't know they know, right? So if you say what's your
True.
budget and
Mhm.
they'd like, I don't really know what should this cost? Because they've never done it
Mm,
before,
yeah,
perhaps. And but the reason I say 500, 5,000, 50,000 is
yeah.
because as soon as you put some numbers in front of them, they
Mhm.
know their
They
budget.
react.
And
All of
it
a
kind
sudden.
right, it pops into their head. So, oh no,
Uh-huh.
50,000 obviously not. 5,000, that's a little high. We were
Right?
thinking more like 3. Okay, thank you. That's what
Right?
I needed to know.
That's a great strategy. Well, hopefully some of our listeners will try it. Also, live listeners, don't forget you can use the chat. So if you have any questions, this is a big topic among our community. So if you want to drop a question in the chat for Elise, you can definitely drop it in and I'll make sure we get it asked before we finish. Go ahead,
I
Elise. I see
had
you're getting ready to talk again.
yeah, I had a conversation with a client this morning who was
Hmm.
working on a proposal for a prospect of hers, someone new she'd never worked with. And we came up with kind of an interesting solution also that I think would be helpful
Yeah.
because she had basically given examples. She's a designer, a graphic
Okay.
designer, given examples but without any pricing to this
Mm.
prospect who was interested. So the prospect came back and said, "This looks good. I'm talking to other people. I need some prices." And she didn't want to scare the person away, basically,
Okay.
by putting prices on. So what we came up with in terms of language is, I know you're looking at other people, but
Mm-hmm.
if our work is what you prefer, then I'm hoping to avoid that you make a decision based only on the numbers. If you like the
Mm-hmm.
work, then
Yeah.
let's talk, because essentially, if you tell us what you can pay, we'll tell you
Right.
what you can get for that. And so I
Yes.
kind of like the idea of just being really honest
Mm-hmm.
and saying, please don't make a decision based only on these numbers, right?
Yes.
Before we talk. Why couldn't you
Uh-huh.
say that?
100%. I love that so much. I think transparency is so key because again, I'm from both sides. It just allows that transparency allows for a better, stronger partnership.
Yeah.
Having worked with as many clients and in varying budgets as I have over 15 years, the best work I've actually done never came from the massive budgets that had 6 or even 7 zeros behind them. It
Yeah.
actually came from some of those smaller projects where we were truly aligned with the client on like the vision, the purpose, the outcome, and then we were really smart about how we use that money.
Yeah.
And at the end, it was a win-win for everybody
Yeah.
because everything was clearly defined on the upfront. We've had this conversation last year at our national conference, and I just flashed back to Sarah Grace Moore, who I think she's also been on the podcast as well. And they own a company that's like People Prosperity, and then the Mackey Group, which does like fractional CFO work, but also like personal finance, mentorship and support. And her mom started the business, and it's really all about understanding your relationship with money
Mm.
and finding joy in money and celebrating money, which is something we are not very conditioned to do.
Right.
So I definitely recommend you all check out the book that Mackie has put out. The other thing Sarah Grace had said at one point was, you know, a lot of creatives have a tendency, because she's a very big passion. I should introduce you guys, actually, Elise.
I'd love that.
She's so great, and you guys would hit it off so well. But she's always saying, like, creatives, like, she's such a passion for creatives. She's a former designer, went to DAP at UC and all this, and now she's in finance. And so, yeah, she was always like, don't charge per hour, charge per the equity that you are providing. Like, what is the value of what you are bringing?
And at the same time, I charge hourly.
Yeah.
So it's different. It really depends on what you're delivering.
Mhm.
But the problem with hourly rates, especially for something tangible or electronic that you're going to deliver, is that nobody knows how long things take. And so an hourly rate isn't a price, number one. Plus, the better you get, the faster you get, the less you make. And how does that make sense? So I think, and what I advise is, it's all about the relationship and the conversation. So if you can gauge through that first conversation, number one, when you ask 500, 5,000, or 50,000, you're not actually getting their budget. You're getting the value that they ascribe to the thing you're doing. That's what you need to know, right? How do you value this? Because if you don't value it the way I value it, then no matter what price I'm going to give you, it's not going to be the right price. So instead of, so when someone says, what's your hourly rate? My general response or advised response is, I don't work that way. It's not good for either you or me. Instead, I'm going to give you a fixed price or a range, and you'll know how much it's going to cost, and I'll know how much I'm going to make, and it'll be great. And if, for example, the scope starts to creep, then I promise I will come up to you and talk to you about it. And if we need to renegotiate, we will, but there will be open communication about it.
So, Elise, you've been running marketing-mentor.com for years now. What is the most common marketing mistake you see creative professionals making that might actually repel their ideal clients?
All right. I guess the biggest mistake I would say is, well, let me start by saying self-promotion and marketing is not about you. That's one of the myths. You think when you're marketing yourself, you're supposed to be talking about yourself.
Right.
And some people say, my mother told me not to brag, or, I don't know how to talk about myself. There are all these reasons. But the reality is that marketing is not about you. It's about them. It's
Mhm.
about their needs, their pain, and only about you to the extent that you're going to solve their problems or cure their pain.
Mhm.
And this is, I mean, it makes sense, right? And it sounds logical, but I feel like there's something about the way our brains are wired that
Yeah.
we are just so self centered. Maybe it's an American thing. I don't know. But we are
Maybe.
so self centered that
Mhm.
even when we understand that intellectually, it's really hard to implement it through
Mhm.
our marketing. And
Yeah.
so when I say that, I mean, for example, what was it I was looking at? Oh yeah, someone sent me a chat GPT thread about
Mhm.
a conversation that he had about his own marketing. He asked ChatGPT,
Yeah.
what should I do in my marketing? And the GPT said, do you want me to give you an outreach message that you should use for this market you're interested in? And he said yes, and I read it, and it was all about him. And they don't care about
Right.
you,
Yeah.
right? You have to start about the thing that they struggle with, or the thing
Mhm.
that they need, or the thing that you know that will make them say, this is exactly who we need, because they really get us.
Yes.
So, short answer, making your marketing all about you is the biggest mistake.
Yes, I agree. I would add to that though. We had an episode, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and we talked about storytelling. I think
Mhm.
where you might fit into the marketing message, and again, it's not making you the hero. I 100% agree with you, but it is speaking to how you have experienced that pain point and
Mm.
leading with a story that makes it relatable but also builds that trust and credibility that like I know. And it's more about like it's more relational than sales or marketing
Mhm.
almost. But I agree with you. If you're not solving a problem, if you just I think I've said it a couple times too on the show, like don't fall in love with the product, fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
anytime you get down that rabbit hole of just the product, the product, the product, or the brand or whatever, you're chasing the wrong thing, you
Yeah.
know. Love it. You got a shout out in the chat. I just want to let you know. It says artificial Elise on ChatGPT is great. Tell us about that. I'm curious.
Awesome. Yeah. So I created my own custom GPT, which
Love it.
seems relatively new still, but it's
Uh huh.
really easy to do. And I've just
Hmm.
uploaded, all of my content. I'm a content machine. I've been doing this for more than 35 years. I've written 7 books. I've got the podcast. I just uploaded as much of my content as possible.
Love
And
it.
so when you ask questions of
Hmm.
artificial Elise, she is speaking with my voice, essentially. She's a little bit more
So
verbose
cool.
than I am. I
Uh huh.
tend to simplify and distill things into just
Uh
the
huh.
one thing that you should do
Yeah.
next. And she gives a whole plan. But she basically, says my Elise isms, like marketing works when you do it, or
Hmm.
like all these things that I say, as well as she knows the simplest marketing plan, so she will tell you what to do within the context of the simplest marketing plan.
Very cool. I love
Yeah.
it. Where can people find that?
Well, she comes with the simplest marketing
There
plan.
you
So you have
go.
to
Well, then
buy the
let's
simplest
talk about
marketing plan to
that.
get access. Sure.
Perfect. Next question as well. Great setup. Thanks, Rosa. So we have a lot of marketing has become it just always right more complex. The funnels are more complex. The automation, the distribution, the platforms. Why, in your the simplest marketing plan, why do you advocate for simplicity when everything's just getting more complex?
Yeah, because everything's getting more complex.
Right. I
Right? I
feel that.
mean, the thing is that it's just everyone is so overwhelmed by
Hmm.
all the things you could be doing or should be doing. I don't think there are any
Hmm.
shoulds. The marketing that works is the marketing you will do. And the biggest mistake, I was going to say this, but it isn't as related to ideal clients, but the biggest mistake people make is not developing a consistent marketing habit. You must
Mm.
do it every day, every
Yeah.
week, regularly. It must be part of what you do. It has to be kind of integrated into your work and
Hmm.
internalized so that you don't need the simplest marketing plan anymore, because you know how to do it, and you do it just as part of what you do every day. That is
Hmm.
just so important. And most people are in the feast or famine syndrome because they're
Hmm.
not doing regular marketing, and they think that when they're busy, they don't have time to do it. But that isn't true. There are always things you can do, whether it's making comments on LinkedIn, just a couple.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. Or
Yeah.
reaching out to a few new people on LinkedIn. You don't have to do a whole blog post or a whole LinkedIn post or a whole anything. Just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit every day will really take you very far.
Yeah, I agree. Consistency is so key.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, let's talk about that moment when, and we had this exact moment a while back too in our member Slack. We had a member who had not increased her rates in 5 years with a client. So she had this client for 5 years. They loved her, and she had not addressed raising her rates in 5 years. How do you guide existing clients through the price increase without having that fear of losing them? Because that was, I think, the biggest thing for her was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm going to say I want to increase my rates, and they're just going to leave me.
Yeah. So, all right, I have a couple different thoughts that I'm trying to keep separate.
Yeah.
I would say the first one is it's a conversation. It's
Hmm.
not an ultimatum. So you have to approach it as a conversation. And one of the ways to do that is to say, and the best time to do this actually is the beginning of the year. And we're coming up on a new
Yeah.
year. So,
Hmm.
start letting them know
Let's
in
do it.
November, right?
Right.
Um, you know, maybe you've noticed that I haven't raised my rates in 5 years. But what you don't know is that all of my new clients are paying more than you are. And
Hmm.
so I'm going to need to bring you up closer to that level.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping you want to continue working together and that
Hmm.
we can come to a number that feels fair to you that's more in that direction. What do you think?
I love it. Great script there. Hope y'all were recording that, writing that down. 100%. That's such a great piece of advice. And it can be such a scary thing. So, fun fact, she did go back and she talked about increasing their rates, kind of similar, sort of a little bit of that script there. That was some things like the members kind of helped her work through a massage. And they were like, of course, like, absolutely. Because here's the thing I'll say too, as somebody who hires contractors and employs people, I and maybe it's just because I am such an advocate, especially for women getting paid their worth. Like, as long as I've got the budget, like, I want you to hear, even if I
Mhm.
can't give you what you're asking for, I still want you to ask, you know, even if I can't
Absolutely.
do it, and I respect you more when you ask.
Absolutely. And in fact, I like to say it's a betrayal of yourself if you don't ask.
Yeah, I agreed 100%. All right.
But let me
You
say
said,
one other thing,
no, please.
because sometimes people, for some reason, think I have to keep all of my original clients.
Yeah.
And the reality is that when you're just starting out, you're probably not, again, getting the best clients. And so ideally, we want to always be
Hmm.
upgrading, and you do that through marketing. So, I mean, it sounds like this particular person did want to keep that particular client, but I wouldn't
Hmm.
always assume that,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right? And if you're
No,
doing the
100%.
marketing, then you can let them go. Just let them go.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's there's a lot there to unpack, obviously, with people firing clients. But I'm like, isn't that why you went in on your own to begin with? Is like you don't want to work for people that you don't want to work for, that don't pay you well, that don't treat you well.
Yeah.
And then we just double back because I get it. Bills are real and things like that. But a lot of what you're saying, how marketing only works when you do it, staying and doing it consistently, looking for the audience that can afford you, having those transparent conversations ahead of putting all of the time and effort into it. When you start to have those money talks, it's not going to happen overnight, but it is
No.
going to start to evolve and change the kind of money that you're making.
Yeah.
And I've literally seen like the numbers and know that it works
Yeah.
on a number of levels. So yeah. And then not only that, but like because you're getting paid better, you feel better about yourself,
Yeah.
right? You feel
And the
like you're
client.
receiving, and the client, what you're like getting is what you're worth, because we
Yeah.
tie a lot to that, obviously.
Yeah. No, we do.
I love it. All right. So you kind of mentioned earlier, and I'm just curious, I'm going to go back to it for a second. If, you said like a lot of, I think creative professionals, especially, don't brag, don't self promote, but also like consistently marketing yourself I'm just going to say it. It's hard when you do it for everybody else. It's kind of like my sister who like manages a restaurant and used to work as like a
Mm,
pastry chef and a catering chef. She hates to cook. Like she doesn't want to come home and cook more.
mm.
What can us marketers do when we spend all day in the kitchen marketing and we come home, we're like, I don't want to market more.
Well, first of all, I would do it first thing in the morning,
Ah, love it.
right? Don't save it for the end of the
Eat the
day.
frog. Yep.
Exactly. Um, I don't know. I mean, I have clients who, to me, this is the biggest win. When a client says to me, you know, I used to hate marketing, but now I love it. And now the
Mm.
client work is like an interruption to me doing my
Mhm.
marketing. And
Ah.
what that means is that they have found a way to do their own marketing that feels creative and
Mhm.
genuine and
Mm.
natural and authentic and
Yeah.
fun. And it can be all those things. But if you have a mindset or tell yourself, oh, I hate marketing. I hate to
Yeah.
do this. I hate to do
Uh-huh.
that. I have to do this. I have to do that. Then you're not going to want to do it, whether it's the morning or the night.
I love it. And it reminds me actually too, I've said it so many times. I'm like, I am my favorite client. I am the easiest client to work with
Mm-hmm.
and work for.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
As
I
you
have an
should
idea,
be.
I can just do it and
Yeah.
there's not going to be a million revisions.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying, Elise.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, for solopreneurs, freelancers who are listening, what is the biggest difference between marketing yourself versus marketing a product or service? And I think this is going to help bring some clarity to some of that self promotion conversation we had earlier as well.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is when we're marketing ourself, we take everything really personally.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I've learned in life, actually, it's that not taking anything personally is
Yeah.
better.
Right.
And the thing that's tricky about that is it means you don't take the negative things personally, but it also means you don't take the positive things personally. The
Mm.
compliments are not pats on the back. They
Mm-hmm.
are information about what the
Mm.
market likes, what the
Yeah.
market wants more of, what you're doing that is working for the market. And if
Mm-hmm.
you can just take yourself out of it, it
Yeah.
makes it so much easier.
Mm. I love it. That's so true. I love it. That's so true. That's great. All right. Let's see. You've written a couple books, 7, right? And
Hmm.
counting,
Yes.
including the Creative Professional's Guide to Money. What is the most counterintuitive piece of financial advice that you could give a creative?
It's kind of along the lines of something I said before, which is don't ask for the budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meaning, you need to get that information, but when you ask that specific question, often they won't answer.
Mm.
So the question to ask instead, after you've said, let's talk about money,
Mm-hmm.
or are you ready to talk about money, or here's my favorite part of the conversation, the money part, then you say, so are you thinking 500, 5,000, or 50,000,
Yeah.
right? You just skip over the question
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of open ended and just
Mm-hmm.
put numbers in front of them. That's really the best way to get a number.
I love it. Super
Mhm.
helpful. Excited to hear if you all try it. All right, I've got one more question before we go into our power round. Live listeners, don't be shy. If you have comments, questions, drop them in the chat for Elise. We know this is a hot topic for y'all. All right, looking at the creative economy today, how has the conversation around pricing and client relationships have evolved since you started your website and your business and everything?
Yeah, well, I started in 1988, so a lot has changed.
Maybe a little. Maybe a
there
little.
was no internet at the
Right?
time, so that was one thing. But I mean, I feel like there's a lot more competition now
Mm-hmm.
than ever before. Plus,
Yeah.
the competition is a click away, as they say.
Yes.
And so that makes marketing more important. In the past, people would say, especially creatives, "Oh, my work should speak for itself.
Mm,
If they want me, they'll come to me."
yeah,
All of these things that were kind of true at the time because
sure.
there wasn't all that much competition. But that's one of the things that changed. And
Mhm.
also, because of that, I think you have to show your value more than the work,
Yeah.
right? The value in the services offered, but also as a service provider, which means how you work. Because sometimes, like with this client I was referring to before, who said, don't base your decision on just the money, because she wants to show that she's very responsive. She's a clear communicator. She meets deadlines. She meets budgets.
Hmm.
All of those things about how you work are sometimes actually even more important than
Yeah.
the final deliverable, because the client, if they're not an expert designer
Hmm.
in this case, they're not going to be
Yeah.
able to tell if the work is good or mediocre. They can probably tell bad work, but some people can't.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. No, I think that's so smart. Showing that value upfront, whether it's through case studies, whether it's through your list of services and your process and like that white glove. I think we've talked about that too, is like hospitality. As a way to look at and run your business. It's not just for
Yeah,
hospitality businesses. There's a reason why people pay a premium for certain kinds of hotels or experiences.
yeah,
It's because they know they're going to be seen, heard, and taken care of, and they're willing to pay for that. So if you
yeah.
can show that, it's going to put you above the rest. All right, we did get a question from one of our live listeners, which is fantastic. We love it. How to market when you're pivoting your career or adding new services that you don't have a whole lot of experience on? This is a great question.
Yeah. Um, First of all, you don't necessarily have to come out and say, I have no experience, right? You
Hmm.
don't necessarily want to be that transparent.
Right.
But you do have to show that you know what they need.
Hmm.
And actually, I read once somewhere, it said, if you can describe the client's problem, or the better and more articulately you can describe
Yeah.
the client's problem, the more they will trust you, which
Hmm.
means it's not about providing the solution, it's about
Hmm.
understanding the problem.
Yes.
So I think that is really important. And then, if you have to create some samples on
Hmm.
your own to show that you can do this, even if you weren't necessarily commissioned to do
Hmm.
it for money by a client, I think that's okay. And I
Hmm.
also think there are people who will give you a shot. You
Yeah.
just have to, be as honest as you can,
Hmm.
and don't be afraid of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I have no samples.
Right.
Again, that isn't necessarily always the most important thing. And one other thought,
Hmm.
if you have related or adjacent experience that you
Yes.
can apply, then
Hmm.
you talk that up, basically.
Yes. Yeah, I was getting ready to add that, Bill. 100%, Elise.
Hmm.
Yeah, transferable skills are a thing, people. You
Yeah,
have more experience than you're giving yourself credit for.
yeah,
Stop minimizing and diminishing your overall experience. I can't
yeah.
tell you how many women will come and be like, I have 20 years of marketing experience, but I've never done um this kind of particular ad. And I'm like, but you've
Who
run ads
cares?
before, right? Like, hello, LinkedIn Learning. Like, there's
Yeah,
so many ways to like learn and train and skill yourself up. Like, that's
yeah.
the beauty of our organization too, right? Is like, I can't tell you anybody that's like, I studied advertising and design in school. None of my friends that graduated with me are doing the jobs, with that degree. And very few women that come to us have that degree.
Mm,
They are kind of using transferable skills, career pivots, and then self taught. Because the space it's changing so much so fast,
mm.
there's really no way you can just go and get some degree. I mean, you can. We definitely have members who've gone and gotten their masters. I kind of am curious to like circle back with them and be like, are you a better marketer now that you spent another like
Hey,
3, 4 years in school? I'm curious. I
and
love
all that
school though. Don't get
money.
me wrong. We'll go
Yeah,
to school forever here. We love learning.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, at this pace, actually, by the time you finish school, things will
Hmm.
be so different
Again. Yeah.
that I, I, I don't think that's necessarily the answer.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I
Yeah.
feel you. All right, let's get to our power round questions then. So
All
these are
right.
some fun little lightning round questions for you. I will keep an eye on the chat in case we have any more questions from our
All right.
listening audience.
Mhm.
What is your go-to response when potential clients say your rate's too high?
Mhm. Tell me what you have in mind. What can you spend? And I'll
Mm.
tell you what I can do for that.
All right, fill in the blank. My biggest money mistake the biggest money mistake creative professionals make is
Assuming you know what your prospect can pay
ooh, that's a good
without asking,
yeah, that.
right? For some reason, people say, oh, I had a feeling they couldn't afford this, so I
Mhm.
charge that. How do you know that?
Right. Exactly. What is one marketing activity that takes 5 minutes that most people never do?
Making comments on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that was a
So
good piece of
simple.
advice. Yeah.
And really, I mean, for some reason, people think posting is the thing,
Mm.
and then they get disappointed or frustrated when nobody comments, or
Mhm.
um, likes it. Those are
Mhm.
vanity metrics. I mean, there are only certain types of posts that
Mhm.
get engagement. You kind of have to ask a question if you want
Yeah.
people to respond.
Mhm.
So, commenting actually is
Yeah.
one of the best things you can do. I think it's even better than posting.
Agreed. Yeah, it's so funny. One of our members bought me a mug that says, "Thanks for liking my post," because I am that girl. Like, I will literally lay there in bed at before night and I'm like, "Oh, this is cool. This is great. Comment like." And the API favors that people. It wants to see that you are engaging. They want to see that you're DMing with people. They want to see that
Mhm.
you're leaving comments. This goes for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, which are pretty prevalent in our spaces and what we do to promote. So, yeah. And I mean, it really just, again, it shows that you are engaging. It's not a one sided conversation. It's not about you. It's about them, like you said earlier, right?
Yep.
Love it. Okay, let's see. What is the best piece of advice you wish you had known when you started your business?
Um, when talking about pricing, to start high.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Often, again, people are afraid they feel like they need it, and so they
Mm-hmm.
don't start high, imagining without having had the money conversation, number one,
Mm-hmm.
that the person can't afford whatever it is you're going to charge.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that you have to start high so that you have room to negotiate. Because if you
Yes.
don't negotiate, then you lose their respect
Yeah.
also, right? You should not just take whatever they offer. That
Mm-hmm.
then you're kind of pegged as a doormat,
Yeah. Don't start at the floor, right? I had
right?
Cindy Gallup on here once who, speaking of LinkedIn, if y'all aren't following her on LinkedIn, she's the best. And she was like, start with a number that almost makes you laugh out loud when you say it. That's how you know you're
Mhm,
high enough. Like,
mhm.
you need to feel like it's so ridiculous. And the sad thing is for women, that number is probably about what
Right,
the average white guy named Chad would probably charge and
that's
not think
right.
twice.
And actually, I have a marketing corollary to that.
Yeah.
Because often people don't do their marketing or
Mhm.
don't reach out to someone because they don't want to be perceived as that, used car salesman,
Sure.
as they say. And
Hmm.
I always say to my people, there's no way you don't even have it in you to be that used car salesman. You
Yeah.
just have to do a little more than you're doing, but you're not even close to that line.
Right. You're not in their they're not in their DMs like every other day. That is so true. And I think again, like we both said a little bit earlier, if you are focused on them and helping them solve a problem,
Yeah.
it's not you being a pain. It's just you being present and ready for them if they need the help that they need.
And they thank you when the
Yeah.
timing is right.
Hmm.
That's the thing that will surprise you. They'll thank you for being persistent.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, oh, here we go. One more question. All right. What's the best approach to reach your audience? For instance, my target prospects are SaaS companies. How can I approach them for video animation services?
Well, you have to either know or ask artificial Elise or ChatGPT what are their pain points when it
Mm,
comes to video animation services,
love
and
it.
then reach out to them about that and ask, do they outsource these services?
Hmm.
Not complicated.
Keep it simple. I love it. That's a great question and a great answer, Elise. I
Yep.
love it so much. All right. Elise, thank you again for sharing all your wisdom and your
Of
experience
course.
with the community today. Your insights on helping to attract clients and having confidence in money conversations is what a lot of us need to be hearing right now, especially like you said, as we're coming to the end of the year, starting a new year. For anyone who wants to dive into Elise's work more deeply, you can find her at marketing-mentor.com. You can check out her marketing mentor podcast,
Mhm.
and grab quick tips from marketing-mentorships.com. And don't forget to connect with her, of course, on LinkedIn as well. Like, comment, right, friends?
Yes.
And remember, the clients are out there, but they really need you all, right? As Elise reminded us, they don't just land in your lap. You have to take some action, even if it's little things every day.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Elise, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you all.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. My pleasure, Elise. All right, everyone. That's all we've got for today. For those who are listening live, enjoy your Halloween. Have fun. Stay safe out there. And we will see you next time. Until then, keep asking, keep giving, and keep growing.
Produced by Heartcast Media.